manager is getting his link. Apparently there was a little bit of a snag, but he's getting on right now. And I don't think you have to hold the meeting for him. I think you can take roll and all that. It is 7.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be here. It's 7 o'clock. I'll call this the meeting of the Lakewood City Council for Monday, June 1st to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Boki,
Present.
Councilmember Brandstetter,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Moss,
Here.
Councilmember Simpson,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Whalen,
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item we have is under proclamations and presentation. That's this year's recognition of the Youth Council for their great work during the school year. For those of you out there watching, Youth Council members, we really appreciate it. It's obviously an unusual circumstance. We'd love to be able to recognize you in person. So because of the great engagement you had during the year. However, I do think we have a youth empowerment video to show at this point. And could you cue that up, please? We're back. I apologize for the lack of sound, but we did have subtitles. I would note for you youth council members up there, I think there's a conspiracy by the city clerk because my comment was the one that was edited out. I broke the video. But one of the comments I did make was that I thought it was important to listen to the youth of today because they're better equipped to adapt to change. They're more flexible in youth than sometimes people are when they get older. And I don't think it's any more important than it is right now, given the strange and interesting times we are living in. So I commend you on being youth leaders and expect you fully to be the leaders of tomorrow in our community. So thanks for doing all you did. And for those of you moving on in your life, good luck in your next endeavors. For those of you who are underclassmen, we look forward to seeing you in person during the next school year. So thanks again for all your service. We now move to public comments. Participation in public comments was accepted via mail or email. Comments that were sent to Brianna Shoemaker, City Clerk at 6000 Main Street Southwest, Lakewood, Washington, or B. Schumacher, that's BSCHUMACHER at cityoflakewood.us. Received up to 1 hour before the meeting were provided to the City Council electronically, and comments submitted after that will be provided to the council electronically. This is in keeping with the governor's order regarding the modifications to the Open Public Meetings Act necessary during the pandemic. Ms. City Clerk, have there been any general comments received?
Mayor Anderson, we received one email public comment from a citizen, Miss Becky Holm, that was provided to the City Council via email in advance of the meeting this evening.
See that, thank you. And then we will move to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
A, approval of the minutes of the City Council study session of May 11th, 2020. B, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of May 18th, 2020. C, approval of claims vouchers in the amount of $2,053,128.10 for the period of April 16th, 2020 through May 15th, 2020. D, approval of payroll checks in the amount of $2,279,191.33 for the period of April 16th, 2020 through May 15th, 2020. E, resolution number 2020-08, setting a public hearing on July 6, 2020 to consider the vacation of the easterly 56 feet of 148th Street Southwest right-of-way east of the intersection with Murray Road Southwest. F, items filed in the office of the City Clerk. 1, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting minutes of February 25th, 2020. 2, Planning Commission meeting minutes of March 4th, 2020. And 3, Planning Commission meeting minutes of April 29th, 2020.
Thank you. Is there any item which any member of the council wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Simpson, seconded by Mr. Whalen, that we adopt the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please take their mute off and signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you. We now move to public hearings and appeals. Madam Clerk.
This is the date set for a public hearing on the 6-year 2021 to 2026 Comprehensive Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you. Public testimony on this public hearing was accepted via email or by regular mail. Comments were sent to Brianna Shoemaker at 6000 Main Street Southwest, Lakewood, Washington, or to B. Schumacher at cityoflakewood.us. At this point, I'd like to call on Mr. Ott.
Good evening, Mayor Anderson, Deputy Mayor Whalen, and members of the council. This evening, the city will hold a hearing for public comment on the draft 2021 through 2026 6-year Comprehensive Transportation Improvement Program. The changes have been presented to the City Council during study session May 11th and to the Planning Commission on May 20th. The hearing tonight has been advertised in the Tacoma News Tribune for the last 2 weeks and as part of the city's public outreach. So it is unmuted. In addition, the draft tip has been available on the city's website for public examination. To date, Public Works Engineering has not received any public comments about the requested additions or changes. Any comments received tonight from tonight's public hearing will be reviewed and evaluated prior to the scheduled council adoption of the tip on June 15th, 2020. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Ott? Seeing none, Ms. Schumacher, have any written comments been received for the public hearing?
Mayor Anderson, no public comments have been received for this public hearing.
So we have no public comment. At this point, I will close the public hearing on the 6-year tip. The next item on the agenda is another public hearing. Ms. Schumacher.
This is the date set for a public hearing regarding proposed code amendments that would reduce the time during which certain fireworks are allowed from July 3rd through July 5th to specified hours on July 4th only.
Given the significant public interest in this item, as evidenced by communication with council and written comments that were received and prior history, I would suggest that we move to continue this public hearing to a date certain in an effort to put it past, into a post-COVID environment where people could actually attend and testify.
I
Mr. Wade.
support that. I support that motion, Mr. Mayor.
I'll make the motion and Ms. Moss can second it if that's the appropriate protocol here.
Okay,
Second.
and I'll defer to our parliamentarian, Ms. Wachter. Do we have to actually note the date for a motion to continue to a date certain?
At the risk of being flip, it's not continued to a date certain if you don't name a date. And once the council has accepted the year that we talked about before for the matter to take effect, there's no longer anything pressing about it. You can pick July or August and hope that the meetings can be held in person and people can feel comfortable coming to the council chambers at that time. And if you got to that date and felt like it still wasn't the right date, you could set it over yet again.
I'd set it up to Mr. Whalen.
I would, as part of my motion, recommend that we do move it to a date certain, and I would suggest, as I pull my calendar up, that we consider the meeting of the 13th or the 20th, whichever is the next regular meeting of July. And the reason being is, we all know that the matter cannot be changed this year. And in fact, I understand the state statute requires that even if action were to be taken by this council, it would not take effect for a year hence. So we're really looking at something that will impact fireworks, if at all, and likely 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Wachter.
That is correct, Deputy Mayor Whalen. And your council dates for July are July 6th and July 20th. Those are regular council dates, meeting dates. The 13th and the 27th are study sessions.
I would say that we move it to the 20th, which gives us a better chance of having in-person time together, free of phase 2 restrictions, I hope, or phase 3. That may not happen, but it also provides an opportunity for the issue of this year's fireworks to be fresh in everyone's mind, so that the good commentary that we've received tonight during the public comment period will be part of that, correct? It'll still be part of the public record, so people don't feel that they have to necessarily appear in person if they've submitted written comments. But for those who have not, they can do so at that time.
Correct. Deputy Mayor Whalen, there is not a requirement for a public hearing on this subject if you wanted to take legislative action. This council has been very clear that you're looking for broad community engagement. And so because it's not that box that I'm always talking about, you can keep it pretty free form as to taking whatever input you get. I would ask on behalf of, there are several people working hard on this to give you the report you got tonight, and we would certainly, time this is considered, I would ask that if you have questions based on the feedback that you're getting, if you will submit them to us, we will follow up on those as well so that you have as much information as possible. But yes, you can take comments for as long as you like on this.
Right. Well, and just to close out my comment on the motion, I'm putting the motion before the council with the date certain to provide some opportunity for discussion tonight. The council as a whole may not wish to wait that long based on the input they've received from the public. So it's now open for discussion.
So
Right, correct.
the motion before us is to continue the public hearing on the fireworks statute or ordinance change to July 20th. And there's been a second. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Caulfield has his hand up there, Mayor.
Phil, I can't, yeah.
No, actually, Deputy Mayor took care of it. I was just going to throw out some suggested dates based on the phasing. So, but I think the Deputy Mayor, the July 20th is a good date. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also note that I think there's some question whether this action would be, not the hearing itself, but an action while the Order on Open Public Meetings Act is in place would be valid, and it would be potentially subject to challenge for not being ordinary necessary. So this would potentially avoid that problem too.
Another question.
Mr. Whalen.
Again, while tonight we're just deciding the motion on the floor to move the public comment period to the date certain, during this discussion period, it'd be interesting to know if council members felt so inclined to set a date for action sooner than that or later than that on the issue of either restricting or banning. Well, really, I'll strike that because we really can't take any action, obviously, before the public hearing if we're not inclined to do so. That's not going to work. My thought process was we've received so much commentary today, whether or not council believes they have sufficient information to make a decision to restrict, and then maybe later on ban if they so chose. I throw it out there for discussion.
Well, it's a hard date that's necessary for any practical reason, purpose would be like July 3rd of 2021, because it has to be made before July 4th. So there's no missing issue on action after the hearing. Any other discussion or comments? Call Mr. Branstetter.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing that I would suggest that we would want to do is, and I don't know that it requires us to take a formal action other than provide some direction to the city manager, is the timeline is if we do anything, it will be impactful more than a year from now. That we do have in our hands the recommendation for this year from the Public Safety Advisory Committee to initiate an education program about the about fireworks and particularly about what fireworks are legal and which ones are not, which is a part of the problem. And I don't think that there is any impediment to us having that recommendation in hand to asking the city manager to begin to work on the education part of that recommendation, since they didn't recommend any legislative action, and it is something we could do without regard to any action that we might take in the future. There are education items about fireworks that would be of value to the community.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any other comment on the motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. The next item is also a public hearing. Madam Clerk.
This is the date set for a public hearing on the 2020 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Map Amendments.
Likewise, we will take public testimony on this public hearing as via mail or email. Comments were sent to Brianna Schumacher, City Clerk at 6000 Main Street, Southwest Lakewood, Washington, or at pschumacher@cityoflakewood.us. For this item, we have Ms. Spear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tiffany Spear. I'm going to jump right away to share my screen for a very brief presentation about tonight's hearing. This is the 2020 Comprehensive Plan Amendment process. We are now in the public hearing for that process. And as was already mentioned this evening, we are obviously in a virtual meeting, and public comment is submitted either by mail or by email. This package of information is available to you starting on page 204 of your packet this evening. Just a quick summary of all of the recommendations that have been put before you from the Planning Commission. There are 9 total amendments. 2 of them are text and the rest are map amendments. Number 1 relates to Plan Development District language, and that's an approval recommendation. Number 2 is a privately initiated map amendment roughly at the corner of Custer and Bridgeport that was changed from the original staff recommendation to recommend the parcels be redesignated to multifamily, rezoned to multifamily 2. On items number 2020-03, 2020-04, both of those were recommended approval as submitted by the Planning Commission to you. Number 5 was a change in the original recommendation by the Planning Commission now to you saying redesignate these parcels to multifamily, redesignate to multifamily 2. Springbrook, which is 2020-06, the recommendation from the Planning Commission was to continue this to next year. However, based on last week's conversation at the City Council study session, there's some additional information I'll provide to you in just a moment. Number 7 was recommended that you remove this from the docket, given the fact that it is actually a site-specific rezone and subject to a different section of the code and a different legislative process. Number 8 and number 9 are a map and then a text amendment. Both of those were recommended for approval by Planning Commission. So number 6, 2020-06, last week, the council discussed this in the study session, as I just mentioned. It covers almost 44 acres and about 20 parcels within the Springbrook area of the city. Since May 26th, the Community and Economic Development Department has become aware that the request for a new floodplain map within this area has been withdrawn by Public Works. And so we are operating and will continue to operate under the 2017 FEMA map for this area, and no changes are being proposed to that. If you will remember, the 2019 amendment cycle is where this suggested change came from, because the City Council requested a redesignation of these parcels to industrial and a rezone to industrial business park. And then third, to remove the boundary of the the Lakewood Station District sub-area boundaries within Springbrook. Given the fact that at the time the redo of the flood map in this area was underway, the council ultimately said we're going to continue this into the 2020 amendment cycle. And so we're looking at it now as part of the 2020 package. In 2020, the public noticing that was sent out and then the public commission, or planning commission information that was provided to the public on February 19th, March 4th, March 18th, and April 14th, all discussed this proposal and included within the discussion of it what might happen should it be zoned industrial. The Community and Economic Development Department did recommend to the Planning Commission to leave it for the future 2021 cycle, given the fact that at that point the FEMA mapping was underway. And in turn, the Planning Commission recommended the same to you. But again, that process we now understand has been pulled. And so we're again operating under the 2017 maps. Where we sit right now is this evening's public hearing, and then the council action is scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight on June 15th. And so with that, I'm available to answer any questions or have it proceed to the planning or the public hearing. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Spear? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the public hearing. Ms. Schumacher, were any comments received on this item?
Mayor Anderson, we received one comment from Mr. Christopher Huss representing the Gravelly Lake Townhomes LLC. That was included in the city council agenda packet on page 215. Other than that, no comments were received.
So we acknowledge receipt of that item. Since there are no others, the public hearing will be closed. We now move to ordinances. Ordinance number 735, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance number 735, granting unto New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, AT&T, a Delaware limited liability company authorized to do business within the state of Washington, its affiliates, successors, and assigns the right, privilege, and authority to install, construct, maintain, repair, and operate wireless cellular facilities known as small wireless facilities within the public rights of way, providing for severability and ratification and establishing effective date.
Entertain a motion. Got a motion for Mr. Whalen. Is there a second?
There's a second.
For this, we have Ms. Kelly Fong.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Before you tonight for consideration is ordinance number 735, granting a small wireless facility franchise to New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, which is AT&T. The recommendation is to approve the ordinance, and the ordinance was previously reviewed during the May 11th, 2020 City Council meeting, and a public hearing was held on May 18th, 2020. At this time, I would be more than happy to answer any questions the City Council may have regarding this ordinance.
Questions for Ms. Kelly Fong? Hearing none. Is there any further discussion from council? Seeing none, will all in favor please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We now move to resolutions. Resolution number 2020-09, Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-09, adopting the 5-year 2020 through 2024 joint Tacoma and Lakewood Consolidated Plan in fiscal year 2020, July 1, 2020 through July 30th, 2021 Consolidated Annual Plan.
And to explain this to us, we have Mr. Gum.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. Can you all hear me? For some reason, my volume went away, but
I can hear you.
all right, I will go with that. Yes, before you tonight is the resolution to approve the 5-year 2020 to 2024 consolidated plan. It's a joint consolidated plan for the cities of Lakewood and Tacoma. There are 2 aspects to the plan. It's a 5-year planning document. So we're looking at 5 years of CDBG and home expenditures, how the cities anticipate to use those. as well as a 2020 annual action plan. So how we intend to use those funds in the coming year. There's also 2 funding sources included in the plan. There's Community Development Block Grant, so a CDBG component. In 2020, the city is we are receiving $596,006. So those funds are to be allocated as part of this plan, as well as home funds in the amount of $331,627. Those are to be awarded as part of the Lakewood Tacoma Home Consortium, and Tacoma is the lead for those. So the funding that was recommended in the CDBG component would be Major Home Repair Sewer Loan Program recommendation. Includes $466,804.80 in current year funding, $40,058.27 in reallocated funds that were unexpended from 2017 and 2019, I believe. Yes. So total recommended for major home repair would be $506,863.07. Emergency home assistance for displaced residents. So the EADR program was recommended for $45,000 in reprogrammed funds. CDBG funding of home administrative services for the home program would be a $10,000 allocation out of the 2020 funds. The other funding that was recommended as part of the CDBG would be the 20% admin cap. So the admin for CDBG was recommended at $119,201.20. So that is the CDBG component. The home component would be 3 programs. The first being Tacoma's 10% administration. So out of the $331,627, $33,163 would go to Tacoma for administration of the program. Affordable Housing Loan Fund, which are funds that we typically use for habitat and LAHSA and development of affordable housing, would be a $150,000 allocation. And then a TBRA program, something new that we're looking to do, tenant-based rental assistance program, $148,464. So a little background on the programs. They were initially brought to council on April 6th. We did have a public hearing held before council on May 18th. The city held a public hearing from April 18th to May 8th. Sorry, we held a 30-day comment period that ended with the public hearing, April 18th through May 18th. We did not receive any public comments on the annual action plan. It was reviewed by the Community Services Advisory Board on April 21st. It was also reviewed by the Planning Commission April 29th. Once this is approved moving forward, quite possibly one of the most interesting CDBG years I've ever seen in my life. This will culminate in a submission to HUD. We have to have it to them no later than August 15th, which is a little later this year due to all the COVID-19 things. It's typically a May 15th approval and submission, but we're looking at a little bit of a delay. I don't see anything beyond a week or so for us to get it out and approved. We're waiting on Tacoma, which approves theirs tomorrow night, and then we submit it to HUD. So with that, one other component I guess I should mention. There is a document included in your agenda. It's called the Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing. This is a document that does not require any council attention. It's a document that does not require approval as part of the resolution. It's basically a rider that goes along with the consolidated plan. It basically is a market analysis of the city of Lakewood regarding fair housing. So things that affect fair housing, demographics of the city of Lakewood, housing components, race, ethnicity, things that would impede certain races, certain ethnicities from obtaining fair housing. It's a fairly comprehensive document, but it's a non-actionable item from council. Just the consolidated plan and the 2020 annual action plan are in the resolution. So with that, I turn it back to council.
Questions for Mr. Gum? Entertain a motion.
So moved,
So
Mr.
moved.
Mayor.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Simpson, seconded by Ms. Farmer. I believe that we adopt resolution number 2020-09. Is there any further discussion? Well, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We now move to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come before the council?
There is none, Mayor.
Any new business to come before the council?
There is none, Mayor.
So we move to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. I'd like to give some COVID-19 updates. The first is, you probably saw, actually yesterday, the governor moved on to what he has defined as a safe state Washington, which is a phased reopening of our state and of our economy. We're currently in phase 1. It's a 4-phased approach. However, Pierce County leadership, including the Pierce County Executive, the Pierce County Council, and Tacoma Pierce County Health Department are looking to put together the information to request the state to allow Pierce County as a whole to move to phase 2. Ultimately, that decision will be made by the Washington State Department of Health. Also understand that once phase 2 goes into place, there's a minimum 3-week wait before a county can apply or move into phase 3, and then subsequently phase 4 after that, which would be the full opening of the county based on how things were in early March. Also, late last week, the governor and the Four Corners state legislature leadership came to an agreement to continue the temporary changes to the OPMA to allow legislative bodies such as yourself to continue to meet with virtual meetings. The other thing that they did is they removed the guidance language that the governor had included early on, that legislative bodies were to only include things that were routine and necessary. So effective today, that is no longer part of his guidance to elected bodies throughout Washington state. Also, we're hearing that this continuation, actually it only goes through June 17th of this month, which is later this month. And what we're hearing from AWC is that it is unlikely that it will be continued beyond that, which means at your study session, which is scheduled for June 22nd, presuming that we're in phase 2, it is likely that that would be an opportunity to have your first either full or partial city council meeting to be held in the city council chambers and have the chambers open for the public to attend. Of course, social distancing would need to be enforced at that meeting, commensurate again with the governor's guidance and the proclamations that he's issued. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Last week, I had communicated that Pierce County is providing free personal protective equipment that's funded with federal monies that they have received from the CARES Act. They were supposed to provide that opportunity actually here in Lakewood. We have been communicating with Pierce County as well as the Lakewood Chamber to undertake that process right here in the Lakewood Town Center tomorrow. However, that has been postponed. And so Pierce County DEM is looking to reschedule that here in the near future. Next item, real brief, I'd just like to kind of give you a warning order in advance of I'm hoping to have some more detailed information as part of your next regular meeting on June 15th, which is, what the financial impact is to the city of Lakewood from COVID-19. What I can tell you is that as it relates to the almost 19,000 cities, towns, and villages throughout the United States, the estimated economic loss, revenue loss for the 3-year period, 2020, 21, and 22, is projected to be $360 billion. For the city of Lakewood, for that same time period, it's currently estimated to be $12.1 million. with most of it occurring in 2020, followed by 21, and then a smaller amount in 2022. However, based on some of our state shared revenues, including sales tax for half a month of March that came in late last week, that 12.1 million is probably going to increase a little bit because the numbers in terms of what we had received just for sales tax, and again, only for half a month in terms of where the economy was shut down, is a bit sobering. So we need to go back and sharpen the pencil to further detail and analyze what the impact could be for the rest of 2020, as well as we look into 2021. As you know, we have been working with our federal delegation to communicate not only what the impact is, but to express our support for some kind of assistance through an upcoming economic stimulus. Congress has actually passed several so far that has provided assistance, for example, to the business community and nonprofits, though nothing yet, or actually in individuals through unemployment and things along those lines, though nothing yet for municipalities, whether it's a city, county, or even a state, though the states have received some monies as part of the CARES Act if they had a population over 500,000, which most states do. So one of the things that we have been doing, quite frankly, is just holding off, waiting for the federal government to act. And what we have been assured, and certainly our delegation here in Washington State understands the predicament that we're in and is very, very supportive, and has gone on record supporting that local governments receive financial assistance to bridge this gap caused by this economic downturn that's caused by the pandemic. However, we can't wait any longer. I'm concerned that the drawdown on our cash is going to go a whole lot quicker in the next 2 to 3 or even 4 months. And while we ended 2019 in probably the strongest financial condition that the city has ended in probably a good number of years, certainly since I've been here, it's been improving incrementally over the years. That is still not enough, given the sobering impact to our general and actually our street fund as well. And I haven't even gotten into the potential impact to real estate excise tax, lodging tax, the loss of the TBD monies, and things along those lines. So on June 15th, what we plan on presenting to you is not only what the revenue losses are going to be, but also a strategy on how we can, again, bridge that gap over the next 2 to 3 years if we do not receive any financial help from the federal government in the near future. And it needs to come soon. It really does. And if it doesn't come soon, there are going to be significant cutbacks in services, even elimination of services across the board. But right now, our approach is to utilize some of the one-time reserve monies that we have, because again, we ended 2019 in such a strong position. Over the next couple of years, again, it's only one-time money. And then also, we've been very frugal since the beginning of March. We put in place a number of action strategies to essentially stop all non-essential and discretionary spending. So that has helped bridge the gap in the short term. But as we move to the next phase, the analysis will show what the impacts are going to be on our services. And one of the exercise that our department directors are currently going through is identifying, okay, what does a 20% reduction look like in the general fund across all departments? Now, I don't think, or at least I'm hopeful, we won't have to go that deep, but certainly having to go 15% is probably very realistic, because again, our reserves are only going to go too far compared to what the revenue loss is. I know this is not good news. However, it is the environment that we're currently in. We are going to have to act quickly in the next month or so to be able to address this, to begin to make some changes. Again, otherwise, my concern is that in our general fund, we are going to very, very quickly run out of cash and working capital. You know, and we're not the only city facing this. Cities all over the country are already moving forward with cuts and things along those lines. Again, we'll have more detailed information as part of your June 15th meeting. And I'm hoping maybe I'll be able to get out to you well in advance of that, some of the work that we're currently doing. I thought, quite frankly, we were there. And then last week we got the numbers that we got. And so we had to go back to the drawing board. So that's where we are financially. Again, more information to come on that. Some other updates. You might have seen a letter. Actually, I want to thank our legal team, Heidi Walkner and Ogden Murphy Wallace, the telecom experts down there, as well as Paul Busich and Shannon Kelly Fong and Tiffany Spear for working on a letter asking the FCC to provide more time regarding a particular ruling that they're looking at implementing regarding wireless siting applications. And it's not just the city of Lakewood, but cities in general have concerns regarding, you know, the conditions of, you know, the siting improvements, the concealment elements, as well as the number of cabinets that can be out there for the things that are, you know, on these poles and towers and things like that. We have asked for more time. We're not the only city that has done that. But again, we'll keep you appraised of how the FCC responds to this. And by the way, it's not just a local or Washington State issue. This is a national issue. At your next study session under reports by the city manager, the city attorney would like to give you an update on an interlocal agreement that we would like to propose to the council for review and consideration as part of your next regular meeting. And it's to form and for the city to sign on to be part of what's called the Pierce County Force Investigations Team, which is a team that's now required by law to essentially review investigation of certain uses of force, such as officer-involved shootings and things along those lines. And so this essentially formalizes that process. And again, the city attorney will have more information for you at the study session next week on that. I'd also like to report, I'd like to pass on from Tiffany Spear, one of our planning managers. So her and Brian Humphreys and Human Services, they have been serving point on working with the community in a census committee regarding the 2020 census. And actually, given the circumstances, the census is moving along quite nicely here in Lakewood. You know, our returns are not as high as the state or even Pierce County. However, they are on par with national averages, approaching 61%. Also, two of our neighborhoods with census tracts that in the past have had very, very low responses. For example, the Springbrook and Woodbrook census tract in 2010, their response rate was 39.3%. Well, as of last week, they were at 47.3%. Still a ways to go to come up with the overall average, not just in Lakewood, but Washington State. But that's a considerable improvement from just 10 years ago. Likewise, Springbrook was their 2020 census response rate was 34.3%, and they're almost at 40% right now. And also the Census Bureau has extended the deadline to respond through October of this year. So we still have some more time. So our committee is going to continue to work, particularly with those two communities, but also, or rather two neighborhoods, but also citywide to get people to respond to the census. But we're certainly headed in the right direction. And again, I think a positive trend given, again, the circumstances that are going on, since we can't get out there and knock on doors and things like that. Wanted to also let you know that last week, or maybe week before, late the week before last, our Public Works Department did request to FEMA to withdraw our application for the LOMAR, which focuses on the floodplain in Springbrook. And the reason for that is that was, FEMA was going to ultimately, because of the outcome of that, was going to require us to identify a new floodway within that neighborhood. However, the reason for asking for the withdrawal is that really there's two issues. One is that there's an existing berm over by McCord Field along Clover Creek as it enters the city that is really kind of causing the problem. That in turn is creating problems going across I-5. And so before we get out ahead of ourselves and create a problem or create some issues where we're creating problems for that area over there, the Public Works Engineering Department would like to work with FEMA and particularly the state on those two issues before we come back and look at the LOMAR again. So the result of that will be that the floodplain and the floodways that were in effect in 2017 as determined by FEMA will remain, which is actually a good thing at this point in time. Earlier today, the Clover Park School District approached us and Ms. Grimley sent out an email to you asking if the council wanted to put a message in their upcoming newsletter congratulating the class of 2020. And so we have drafted something for you. I know we sent that out to you. And if you have any feedback or comments on that, please let us know. And would like to know by close of business on this Wednesday, June 3rd. Likewise, I know I had mentioned last week that we had drafted an article for the city council as part of the upcoming Connections magazine. And I know several of you have already provided feedback, so thank you. But if there are any others, if you have any additional feedback, please let us know, myself and the communications manager, Ms. Grimley, by this Thursday, June 4th, close of business on that. Also, you might have seen an email from Representative Levitt over a week ago, and she sent it out to elected officials within her district, including you folks. And so she was seeking an opportunity for you all to provide feedback regarding some legislative solutions that have actually been recommended by Association of Washington Cities, and wanted to get your feedback. We have provided some responses to that, and so just wanted to pass that on to the council and get your direction on how you'd like to handle it. Would you like to have the response come from the mayor on behalf of the council, which would be probably my recommendation, which is the reason being is because it was directed to elected officials. And so from one elected to another, or if there's some other way you'd like to handle, I'd be more than happy to help accommodate that.
This with the city manager, I agree that I think it's appropriate to respond as elected official to elected official. I think these are generally good ideas myself, but before I would speak for the body, I wanted to make sure that I had input from my fellow council members. So if there's no objection, it might be my intention to provide comments in support of these initiatives for flexibility to Representative Levitt. Mr. Branstetter.
Mr. Mayor, I'm both good with the draft comments that were provided by the city manager and with your speaking for the council as a whole. The one point that wasn't in the AWC memo or in the city manager's discussion about lodging tax is that I think that in addition to getting flexibility to be able to use that money for things other than are in the current statute, is that it would also be a good idea for them to relax the requirements around the role of the Lodging Tax Advisory Board, where they have to consider every expenditure of that money, and that we can, and that they have essentially we can only either agree or not agree with them. I think we want not only what the money can be used for, but that process to be changed to where we perhaps don't have to go through that for every expenditure. And you would maybe know how to better word that, having served as the chair of that board for a while. Just seems it would be awkward if we're going to use it for general fund purposes, if they allow it.
I think, I guess I look at the opportunity for flexibility with hope. I'm skeptical that that provision would get by industry objections. This has been highly politicized in the past as to the control issue. I generally agree with you that that would be nice. I don't think it would pass. It's like, so, but we could mention it. Any other questions, comments on that? Well, back to you, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mayor, maybe you and I, we can coordinate tomorrow on that.
Okay. Have anything further?
Just real quick, so late last, actually it was on Thursday or Friday. These days are all running together, I apologize. So Paul Busich, our Public Works Engineering Director, passed on to me the initial recommendations or ratings of the projects through PCRC, which is how the federal transportation dollars that come from PSRC will be allocated. So would you like the good news or the not so good news first? So the good news, okay, I'll just jump into it. The good news is that our two overlay projects ranked 2 and 3 in the county. The first one being South Tacoma Way from 96 to Steilacoom Boulevard overlay, and then the second one from 100th to, on 100th Street rather, from Lakewood to Lakeview overlay. However, even though they both rank 2 and 3, we only get 1. And then on the roadway projects, you know, we had submitted 4 projects, and 2 of them rated kind of in the top third into the bottom, you know, top half, South Tacoma Way and Steilacoom Boulevard for construction. However, based on the funding that is available, because these dollars don't go very far, and when I mean available, I'm talking countywide, highly unlikely that we're going to receive any roadway funding this cycle. And then likewise, our Gravelly Lake non-motorized trail phase 2 for some PE money was down at the bottom, as well as 100th Street, Lakeview to South Tacoma Way, where we were going to do some preliminary engineering work and right of way there as well. So we'll have to come back on that in 2 years. So just wanted to pass that on to you. And I know, I think it's Councilmember Farmer and Councilmember Boki, if I recall, who are on the PCRC board. So that will be coming forward to you in the next, probably later this month, actually, I believe at your next meeting in June. So just wanted to give you a courtesy heads up on that. So that's my report.
Okay, questions for the city manager?
Ms. Moss,
Yes, Ms. Moss.
I just wanted to ask Councilman, our city manager, if there's been any news on a location in Lakewood for testing for the COVID-19.
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Moss. No, you know, we have not heard that yet. Every once in a while we hear something, but nothing that we know for sure is going to occur. So as of right now, we are not aware of that.
Any other questions for the city manager? I have one. Have we committed the $5,000 to the affordable housing partnership?
I do not know, Mayor. I'll have to check our finance records. You know, you approved it as part of the budget carry forward. That's something I would not consider discretionary. It's something that is part of an agreement with other partners. So if the invoice came, we would have paid it. But I can check that, Mayor.
Yeah, I think there were several sending the money, and there's several of those came through from other jurisdictions. Council comments? Ms. Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Due to the violence that is taking place around us due to the death of George Floyd, I would like to have a discussion with my colleagues on these events and offer up any support that we can. I was looking at Mike's thought after talking to a couple of our city leaders and board members, along with our deputy mayor, that we come together and come up with some statement that we can present. And I offer up the LMCC Facebook and Twitter page to pass the resource as a resource for this information. So any suggestion, ideas, comments that would be helpful and to the point and positive, I would appreciate it from my colleagues.
Mr. Whalen and I discussed this a little bit, and I think one idea was to contact Tacoma and see if, as long as we are in general agreement as to any policy aspects that are maybe included, jointly make a statement or join in a statement that is made, so that it's more of a coalition than people making individual statements.
And that's a good idea. I was included in that would be our police officers as well as our fire department with input, if that's.
So if that sounds like a possible avenue, I go ahead and contact Mayor Woodards and bring something back to the council.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Mr. Brandstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a follow-up to, as you working on Ms. Moss's suggestion about taking a look at something, I guess that I would just not want to do anything that brings the current officer involved shooting investigation involving one of our officers into play into the discussion. And I just would be cautious about wanting to not say anything that would cause that to become a topic. I appreciated the fact that we were able to speak to and pass on our appreciation to this year's Youth Council. I certainly hope that the recruitment for new Youth Council members is probably interrupted by the school district's COVID-19 response, that we make some good efforts to replace the Youth Council members that we're losing, and to maintain a good distribution across all of the high schools in our city. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Farmer.
I'm glad Councilmember Moss brought up the subject. of the racial injustice. I sit here with a heavy heart in the middle of everything else going on and just the continuing senseless violence that goes on. And as leaders, it's critical that we speak, but it's also critical that we take action. And so I was actually going to suggest that we reach out to our regional partners, our regional counterparts, and see if there was anything that we could actually do to affect real change. To quote Mayor Woodard's, "Enough is enough, and we can't rest until there is change." So I'm anxious to have that discussion or see what that partnership might look like down the road. That's all I have.
Just a comment on that. I think there will be an opportunity for that. Something may be in the works as we speak. So, and I would note that in spite of the, there are some Facebook representations that Tacoma is the city with the largest African-American population and proportionately in the Northwest, or most diverse. And that's not even true in Washington. Lakewood is more diverse and has a greater percentage of African-Americans than Tacoma does. And we have a history of good collaboration. And I think we may be in a position that we can help lead. We certainly have to be a participant. So. Anything else, Ms. Farmer? And Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a suggestion. I greatly appreciate what Councilmember Moss and then Councilmember Ranstetter and Councilmember Farmer have said concerning the current situation in Minneapolis and across the country. And I had a thought the other day that might sound a little bit out there, but I'm going to pitch it anyway. I suspect that Minneapolis's city council wouldn't mind hearing a kind word from another city council just to do what is right. Because as Councilmember Farmer pointed out, this is squarely in their backyard. And I'm just wondering if maybe we couldn't send something to that city council saying, hey, we're with you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Bolke.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything tonight. Thanks.
Mr. Whalen.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the chance to be here with all of you tonight. And I just want to echo the sentiments of many, not just those on our council, but from around the region. I think it's a time for heavy hearts. It's a very unfortunate time. And I think, as Ms. Moss and Mr. Branstetter and Ms. Farmer and you, Mayor, have said, we need to stand up. We are privileged, not just some of us because of our whiteness, but also because of the honor of holding public office. And I think we have to utilize that privilege to speak out against injustice in any way we can. And if not now, when? If not us, who? And I love the fact that we should do it in a regional way. I have, as many of you do, very close friends on the Tacoma City Council that I reached out to today, including the Deputy Mayor, Keith Blocker, who's a friend, client, and former ALF buddy of mine. And I think it's important for us to try to do something regionally, not just by way of words, as Ms. Farmer indicated, but I think there's something more powerful that we can commit to by way of some sort of regional action, whether it's a commitment to a true sense of community policing that our own police chief does such a great job of articulating, but really we've got to figure out a better way where we can make some concrete steps and affirmative action, whether it's just getting a better sense of awareness and some sort of a regional training or something that commits us to doing more than just say good words for a day and hope and pray for a better tomorrow. I think it's time to do that, but I'd be happy to help in the reach out and continue the work that I've done already today and informed you and the city manager. So I think we're on the right track.
Thank you. Let's see. Phase 2, the health department changed the rules. The state health department changed the rules a little bit from the governor's last proclamation. So the application from Pierce County couldn't get out today because the health department hadn't completed it today to try to comply with the additional requirements that came in through health department regulations between the governor's pronouncement and the opportunity to actually submit the request. So hopefully that will be forwarded from the health department to the executive for transmission to the state health department tomorrow. From the local health department to the executive to the state, which is the way the new rules stated it's supposed to go. But it's still on track. Regarding mobile testing, the county is going to provide funds to the Department of Emergency Management to buy trailers and set up mobile testing. And so that's on track, and it's not going to be tomorrow, but there will be mobile testing facilities in the county. It can be converted to mobile vaccination units if and when a vaccine is available. When we move to the exemption from the Open Public Meetings Act, and we need to consider the format of a open meeting if the act isn't continued, or the exemption of the act isn't continued. So in balancing social distancing and the need for public access, it may be that the best way would be to have a hybrid. And we have allowance under our rules to appear electronically. And so one opportunity may be open up the council chambers with designated seats that are spaced around where attendance isn't that great, and I'd expect it to be even less, that so that people who aren't in the same household are spaced. That I appear to preside with the city manager and the city clerk spread out, and that if one or two council members wish to appear, they could, and we could figure out how that's handled. And otherwise, up to all 6 of you could appear remotely. But we have to think about what happens after, I believe it is June 17th, and how we provide for public input and access and conduct our business in a safe way. So back to my comment about the youth council, we have to adapt to change. And the rules will change daily. So it's not a decision that needs to be made until probably 48 hours beforehand. Is there anything else to come before the council?
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Moss.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to my colleagues for the support that you gave, and I will offer up the Multicultural Coalition website, the Facebook, and to remind you that the Lakewood Multicultural Coalition is for the Lakewood and the greater Puget Sound area. It's not just for Lakewood. So just a reminder of that. So thank you all for your input. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, we're adjourned.